From South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Hi there and welcome to Headliners. I'm Lauren Pastrana. During the height of Hurricane Milton's wrath, powerful tornadoes touched down across Florida, some of them even breaking records. CBS News Miami's Ted Scouten takes a look at the devastation left behind and what may have led to the unusual amount of twisters.
Streets of some neighborhoods in South Florida still lined with a lot of debris, all damage of Hurricane Milton. And now we have it confirmed through the National Weather Service that we had a record number of tornadoes that touched down that day. By Florida standards, this tornado in Wellington and this one in Palm Beach Gardens are monster storms. The National Weather Service confirms they were EF3s like you might see in Texas. They're the only two on record here in the past 17 years. What is your thought about the power of this storm?
It's unparalleled. I never thought, I had seen Oklahoma, Kansas, places like that get these.
John Hardy lives in Wellington. He has a lot of damage around his home, some of the columns up front even coming down. And what used to be a tree-lined drive is now piles of debris in front yards.
Basically came from the right side over my house, so we had to tarp this immediately because it did I would say 80% of the tiles, and those are the heavy, thick Florida tiles, have come off the house.
Video shows the power of the twister taking down a pool cage in just seconds and dragging everything on a patio toward the swirling storm. A record 15 tornadoes touched down in South Florida on October 9th.
Only 1% of landfalling hurricanes produce tornadoes of EF3 ratings or greater, so this is a rarity.
Next weather meteorologist Casey Sherman explains we usually see much weaker storms here, but in this case, we had the right ingredients to form Texas-like tornadoes.
We had that sunshine that really kind of bumped up the instability, it bumped up the warmth, that sunshine warmed up the air, and we had a whole lot of humidity. And I think it's that kind of setup that really allowed for these robust strong tornadoes when you also get that wind field.
With the amount of damage done by those tornadoes, it's going to take a while for everything to be repaired and to get back to normal. One homeowner told us that at his place, he expects it could take up to a year. In Wellington, Ted Scouten, CBS News Miami.
Do you have flood insurance? For residents in Central Florida, the answer could determine if they're able to file an insurance claim for damage caused by Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Many companies have declared the recent storms were mostly a flood event, which means people without flood insurance could find themselves left high and dry when filing a claim. CBS News Miami's Joe Gorcho examines the importance of flood insurance and the impact the storm could have on the overall insurance market.
See where the water was all the way up to the top.
Claudia scrolls through her phone, showing us how the floods in April 2023 damaged her Edgewood home. She didn't want to give her last name for privacy reasons, but she did share her challenging experience.
It took 6 days before the water got down. I couldn't get into my house. I had to climb through the window.
And in June this year, she says another rain event left about 2 feet of standing water, she says, in the home, ruining the floors, belongings, and appliances.
I'm still trying to get my claim for it. And then I have a lot of people tell me, why don't you sell and get out? Sell and get out. Good. Where do I go?
She loves her home. She plans to stay. With her house completely paid off, she doesn't have to carry property insurance. She chooses not to, saying it's too expensive.
Just stayed with the flood insurance, and that's been glad I did that because that's the only thing that saved this house.
If you don't have flood insurance, then that could be a pretty penny.
Jose Mata works for Sabanda Insurance. He explains flood insurance is a separate policy provided by private insurers or by the National Flood Insurance Program. The Insurance Information Institute estimates that only 20% of Floridians have a flood insurance policy. Most policies written in Florida are through FEMA, with a $250,000 building coverage cap and a $100,000 cap for contents.
Private flood market is a good option, hopefully, for some people.
Mark Freelander says there is a high risk for homeowners going without flood insurance, especially after an increase in major flooding events in Florida.
More people living in harm's way than ever before, and particularly in South Florida.
He calls it a 365-a-day risk, whether it's heavy rains or hurricanes. Freelander adds that the hurricanes that made landfall this year don't pose a risk to our insurance premiums.
Overall capital position of the industry is strong.
Should consumers here in South Florida feel comfortable that their premiums won't escalate that much more than they already have with a healthy insurance market?
We can't make any predictions yet on where rates will go because of the storm activity this year. It's premature to do that. The trend is positive. Because when we look at other states, we're seeing double-digit increases.
Regardless, the continued increases have homeowners asking the same question.
How am I going to afford all this and then keep our house going and the whole bit?
Joe Gorcho, CBS News Miami.
And of course, South Florida is no stranger to these powerful storms, so it's no surprise that local crews packed their bags and headed to the West Coast to help in some of the hardest hit areas. CBS News Miami's Nakaya Carrero joins us with more on their homecoming.
As you can see behind me, around 70 emergency vehicles have returned from the Gulf Coast. They specifically were stationed in the area where Hurricane Milton made landfall in. That's Sanibel Island, Sarasota, and Siesta Key. 110 firefighters, paramedics, and officers returned home after deploying for Hurricane Milton. This is the second time within a month as they first left to assist with Hurricane Helene. Crews took everything they would need when responding to a natural disaster. While over there, crews assisted with search and rescue efforts, structural assessments, and first aid response if needed. The team leader said they don't know how long they'll be staying for, with hurricane season far from over.
You know, we're monitoring the weather. We're monitoring any depressions that are forming in both they are forming in the Atlantic and both the Gulf regions. Right now, what they're telling us is we need to get ready to go out the door again.
The task force says their goal is to have all this equipment cleaned, put up by the end of today, in the case they have to leave for another storm. In Miami, Nakaya Carrero, CBS News, Miami.
When we come back, Election Day is fast approaching. See what South Floridians have to say about both presidential candidates in what may be a razor-thin race. Next.
From South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Welcome back. I'm Lauren Pastrana. A recent survey finds more than half of Florida's Hispanic voters leaning toward Donald Trump in November's election. But a crowd of critics around the former president's town hall have their doubts. CBS News Miami's Larry Seward explains.
Sitting on Calle Ocho in Little Havana, two of Domino Park's old school gamers.
I want to be secure. Are
about the same thing, even if lifelong friends Miguel Perez and Eduardo Celorio air different political views in two different languages.
Busco seguridad.
In Spanish, Perez says, I'm looking for security too, while he sees potential with Kamala Harris.
Like Democrats, but I don't feel safe with her.
Celorio feels burned. He considers her time as vice president a failure because of the economic squeeze his family feels.
Is there anything the Democrats could say that would change your mind?
In my case, I'm interested in seeing and hearing some progress towards having a better economy so that people can work and enjoy the fruits of being in this country. Those fruits are being able to buy a car, being able to have a house, economic dreams for their children.
This week-old Mayor's College survey found 58% of Florida's Hispanic voters leaning toward former President Donald Trump. Nearly a third say inflation is the reason.
All I do is report.
In Doral, former President Trump leaned into those numbers during a town hall discussion ranging from immigration to the economy.
I want him to win my vote, right? I gave him the opportunity to win the vote because I believe he has destroyed the Republican Party, right? But I gave him the opportunity to come clean, to admit, which he doesn't admit to his mistakes.
Back in Little Havana, Perez says he's 50-50 on some issues, but hardly in the same camp with Celorio, supporting Trump.
Harris Walz campaign delegates speaking here in Doral before Trump's town hall criticized the former president, accusing him and Republicans of standing in the way of immigration reform. In Doral, Larry Seward, CBS News, Miami.
Meanwhile, Miami-Dade County is making sure their voting machines are in tip-top shape. CBS News Miami's Terry Hornstein is in Doral with a look at the process.
I come from a country that they don't have voting.
Martha Gonzalez says she realizes how important it is to cast her ballot this election season.
I'm voting, that's it.
Gonzalez came out to the Miami-Dade County Elections Department Wednesday to watch staff test the machines.
Every single voting unit that's deployed for an election is fully tested, but in this particular test, we take a random sampling. and we do the test in front of the public.
This process takes about an hour. Each machine here tested for accuracy, something the supervisor of elections calls a confidence test.
We do everything exactly like we would in a real election. So we take real ballots on actual equipment that we're deploying. It really does show the public that they can be confident in the election.
The supervisor of elections says it is important to be transparent.
We invite the public. In fact, we want the public and the candidates to come. With transparency becomes confidence, and with confidence, you know that you can cast your vote and know that it's going to be cast properly.
And she says security is always tight.
We take great measures, both from the security, cybersecurity perspective and also physical.
She tells us she's ready for in-person voting to get underway.
So I'm feeling pretty good in this county. We're going to have a very smooth election.
For Gonzalez, voting always important.
It's very important, so please come out to vote now and always.
And all of this is being done right now here in Miami-Dade County because early voting begins on Monday. In Doral, Terry Hornstein, CBS News, Miami.
When we come back, see how the life and legacy of a South Florida teen is being honored one smile at a time.
From South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Welcome back. I'm Lauren Pastrana. A South Florida native is alive and telling his story just a week after having a stroke. The 33-year-old was just about to board a Brightline train to head home to Orlando when he could not move the left part of his body and he couldn't speak. Brightline workers immediately stepped in and called 911. CBS News Miami's Trish Christakis has how doctors and AI helped save the man's life.
First time I broke down crying in a while was when there was they were like, lift your left leg, and I couldn't move my left leg, move your left arm, and I couldn't move my left arm. I knew what my name was, but I couldn't say it to anybody.
Roy Law was about to board the train when suddenly he couldn't move the left half of his body.
In my mind, I had to get back to work, so I was like, can you get me on the train? And the guy's like, I can't, like, something's not right here. We're not putting you on the train.
These Brightline workers stepped in once they realized something was wrong. Thanks to their quick action, along with the paramedics and the doctors at Broward Health Medical Center, 1 week after his medical emergency, Law is not only alive, but he didn't suffer any permanent damage.
I don't see that many strokes with this outcome, and to be honest with you, I think this is one of the first few cases where even after the thrombectomy, we get the MR imaging, and there's no evidence that Roy has ever had a stroke.
Doctors used AI-powered imaging software like this to identify the at-risk area. What you see in green was where the risk was.
This amazing technology now that we can basically have our scans processed within like a couple of minutes.
They want people to remember this sign when you see someone not acting completely right.
But the only telltale sign that you provided the guys was when they were asking you questions, you had a delayed speech.
A day and a group of people Roy Law says he'll be forever grateful for. In Fort Lauderdale, Trish Christakis, CBS News, Miami.
A 16-year-old girl and the legacy she left behind now making Miami proud. During her freshman year at Nova High School in Davie, Rebecca Kurtman, known as Becca, launched a drive to provide prom dresses and accessories to girls who couldn't afford them. Tragically, Becca died in a crash in 2003, but more than 20 years later, her dream is still alive. And as photojournalist Adam Spunt shows us, this homecoming season, hundreds of girls will be dressed to impress thanks to Beccas Closet.
Dresses are very expensive these days, and to be helping girls in need is a very kind thing to do.
Beccas Closet is a nonprofit organization that donates free homecoming, military ball, and prom dresses to high school girls who can't afford to buy them. It was started as a project by our late daughter, Rebecca.
She wanted to make a little difference, and she started writing letters to dress manufacturers around the country, asking them to donate dresses. And she went to local stores in the mall, asking them to donate dresses. And she also put up signs around school asking her classmates if they had any dresses that were recently used that they could be donated and help one of their classmates.
There are things like this is Beccas. Now that I have a dress that I'm comfortable in and that I love, I'm definitely going to be attending.
We've given away tens of thousands of dresses to girls to continue Rebecca's legacy. It feels really, really good to see the looks on people's faces when you relieve the burden from them, when you make a little bit of a difference in their lives and show them that you care about what they care about. It's not how I feel, it's how they feel. So if the girl feels beautiful, then she's gonna look beautiful and we're gonna feel great about it.
Soon after Rebecca passed, one of her girlfriends came up to me and said, "Do you know what BEC stands for?" And it really summed up what she said, and that was bringing everyone closer. And that's what sums up Beccas Closet.
Quite a legacy. Thank you for joining us this half hour on Headliners. As always, keep it right here to CBS News Miami for up-to-the-minute breaking news and weather 24 hours a day. Make it a great one.